Join me as I dive into the world of urban legends to see if I can uncover the truth behind these horror stories. Are they real or just a myth? Urban legends have been a part of our cultural landscape for as long as anyone can remember. From creepy campfire stories to whispered tales of terror, these modern myths have a way of capturing our imagination and sending shivers down our spines. But what is it about urban legends that makes them so compelling? Is it the thrill of possibly being based on real events, or the fear of the unknown that lurks within their twists and turns? Whatever the reason, one thing is certain. Urban legends have a way of tapping into our deepest fears and anxieties, making them a fascinating topic to explore. Today, we're going to delve into two eerie stories that will leave you questioning what's real and what's mere myth. From haunted landscapes to sinister characters, these urban legends will push your imagination to the limit and make you wonder, could they really be true? So sit back, get comfortable, and let's dive into the world of urban legends together. But wait, there is a catch. One of these two stories is true whilst the other is totally made up by us. Which is which? Which is myth and which is reality? Only you can decide. Stay till the end to find out if you're right. So all that's left for you to do is to sit back, relax, and get ready to explore the darker side of reality. Is the afterlife real? You decide. But be warned, don't watch this video alone. The Nurse's Last Shift, the dark truth of Waverly Hills, based on true events at the old Waverly Hills Sanatorium. Rising above the misty hills of Jefferson County, Kentucky, the Gothic spires of Waverly Hills Sanatorium pierce the sky like ancient watchtowers. Built in 1910 and expanded in 1926, this massive structure sprawls across 150 acres of what locals still call Death's Garden. The limestone walls, now weathered by over a century of Kentucky seasons, hold countless stories of suffering, hope, and unexplained phenomena. But among all these tales, none is more chilling than the truth behind the death of Nurse Mary Elizabeth Crawford in 1928, a truth that wouldn't fully emerge until nearly a century later. The Louisville Courier-Journal's archives paint a grim picture of the tuberculosis epidemic that earned the city its dreaded nickname, Death Valley. By 1924, Jefferson County had one of the highest TB mortality rates in North America, with an estimated 127 deaths per 100,000 residents. Waverly Hills, originally designed to house 40 to 50 patients, soon found itself crammed with over 140 souls fighting for their lives. According to hospital records from 1926, preserved in the Kentucky State Archives, the death toll became so overwhelming that the administration implemented an ingenious but macabre solution, a 500-foot underground tunnel that would come to be known as the Death Tunnel or Body Chute. This concrete passage, still accessible today, served a dual purpose, transporting supplies up and bodies down, all without affecting patient morale. Dr. Samuel Thompson, the head of maintenance from 1925 to 1930, wrote in his memoir, "The sight of death affected the living. We had to maintain hope, even if it meant hiding our losses. The tunnel became our secret corridor of last resort." His logbooks, discovered during renovations in 2015, recorded an average of 1 to 3 bodies being transported through the tunnel every day during peak periods. It was into this environment of desperate hope and hidden despair that Mary Elizabeth Crawford arrived in the spring of 1927. Fresh from nursing school in Boston, where she had graduated top of her class, Mary brought with her not just medical knowledge, but a fierce dedication to patient care that would ultimately lead to her demise. Her early letters to her sister Margaret, now preserved in the Louisville Historical Society, reveal an idealistic young woman determined to make a difference. "The conditions here are challenging," she wrote in June 1927, "but these people need us." Dr. Harris has implemented some experimental treatments that he claims are showing promise. The patients call him the miracle worker, though something about his smile never quite reaches his eyes. By August 1927, Mary's observations became more detailed and increasingly troubled. In a letter dated August 15th, she wrote, "Something strange is happening on the 5th floor. Patients are being moved there at night, supposedly for specialized treatment, but their charts disappear from the nurse's station. When I ask about them, I'm told they've been transferred or succumbed to their illness, but there are no death certificates, no records in the tunnel logbook." The 5th floor, where room 502 was located, had always been shrouded in mystery. Originally designed for the most severe cases, it had developed a reputation among staff for unexplained phenomena. Night nurses reported hearing footsteps in empty corridors, and equipment would be found rearranged in locked rooms. But Mary's discoveries would reveal horrors far more tangible than any ghost story. Her personal diary, recovered from her quarters after her death, documented a systematic investigation that spanned months. Starting in September 1927, she began keeping detailed records of patient transfers, mysterious disappearances, and unmarked graves in the hospital's cemetery. The entries grew increasingly disturbing. October 12, 1927, patient Thomas Miller, age 19, moved to room 502 tonight. Dr. Harris claims his condition has worsened, but I checked his charts yesterday. He was improving. November 3, 1927, found strange vials in the medical waste. Labels torn off, but definitely not standard TB medication. Nurse Wilson says she's seen similar vials in Dr. Harris's private office. November 28, 1927, 3 more patients moved to the 5th floor this week. None appeared in the morgue records, yet their beds are empty. The night orderly, James, says he's heard screaming from 502 during his rounds. December 15, 1927, I've started checking death certificates against the tunnel logbook. Numbers don't match. Where are the missing bodies going? As winter descended on Waverly Hills, Mary's investigation deepened. She began staying late after her shifts, documenting everything she could. Security logs from this period, recently digitized by the Louisville Medical Historical Society, show her signing in for extra hours, often until dawn. What she discovered during these late-night investigations would never make it into official records. On December 23, 1928, Mary made her final diary entry. I have proof now. The files in Dr. Harris's office confirm everything. Unauthorized experiments, missing patients, payments from companies that don't exist. He's been using terminal patients for testing experimental treatments that no ethical board would ever approve. The screams from 502 weren't from pain or illness. They were from whatever he was doing to them. I've copied everything I could find. Tomorrow morning, I'm taking it all to the Louisville Police Department. Dr. Harris caught me in his office tonight. He smiled that same cold smile and said he appreciated my dedication to the patients. If anything happens to me, look in the hollow space behind the supply closet in room 502. I've hidden copies of everything there. God forgive me for not speaking up sooner. I thought I was gathering enough evidence to make the charges stick. How many patients suffered while I built my case? The next morning, at approximately 6:15 a.m., Mary's body was discovered by Hannah Wilson, the incoming shift nurse. According to the official police report, dated December 24, 1928, Mary had apparently hung herself from the light fixture in room 502. The report noted several inconsistencies: defensive bruises on her arms, scratches on her neck that didn't match the hanging marks, and torn pages in her diary. Despite these red flags, the death was quickly ruled a suicide. Dr. Harris provided a statement to the police. Nurse Crawford had been showing signs of emotional instability. The stress of working with terminal patients often affects our staff deeply. We had actually planned to discuss a leave of absence with her this week. The investigation was closed within days, but the truth refused to stay buried. In 2018, during extensive renovations of the 5th floor, workers discovered a cache of documents exactly where Mary's diary had indicated. The papers, though damaged by time and moisture, painted a horrifying picture of unauthorized medical experiments conducted under the guise of tuberculosis treatment. The documents included patient lists with detailed reaction notes, financial records showing payments from shell companies, photographs of medical procedures that went far beyond any accepted practice, letters between Dr. Harris and various pharmaceutical companies discussing human trials, death certificates with causes of death that didn't match internal records. These documents are now sealed in the Kentucky State Archives, though several pages remain classified under state medical privacy laws. However, their discovery prompted a deeper investigation into Waverly Hills history. Forensic analysis of Mary's original autopsy photos, conducted in 2020 using modern technology, revealed evidence inconsistent with suicide. Dr. Sarah Chun, a forensic pathologist who reviewed the cases, stated, "The angle of the neck trauma and the pattern of bruising strongly suggest this was staged to appear as a suicide." Today, Waverly Hills Sanatorium stands as both a historical landmark and one of America's most actively haunted locations. Room 502, in particular, continues to generate unexplained phenomena. Security guards regularly report seeing a young nurse in a 1920s uniform walking the 5th floor corridors, clipboard in hand. EVP recordings from multiple paranormal investigations have captured a female voice saying phrases like, "Check the records," and "They're still here." In 2021, during a historical preservation project, workers discovered something that sent chills through the paranormal research community. Hidden beneath layers of paint on the room 502 light fixture was a message scratched into the metal. Mary Elizabeth Crawford, December 24, 1928. The truth will outlive them all. James Martinez, a current tour guide at Waverly Hills, has witnessed numerous unexplained events in room 502. Sometimes the room goes ice cold, even in summer. Visitors report smelling old-fashioned hospital antiseptic, and we've had multiple instances of writing appearing on the walls. Always numbers and dates that match the hospital's records from the 1920s. The most recent incident occurred in March 2024, when a team of historical researchers discovered additional documents in a previously sealed wall cavity. While most of these papers remain under review by historians, one document has been made public, a letter from Hannah Wilson, the nurse who found Mary's body, written in 1956. In it, she finally broke her silence. "I've carried this secret for too long. Mary didn't kill herself. I saw Dr. Harris and 2 orderlies leaving room 502 that morning, just before I found her. They didn't see me. I was too much of a coward to speak up then, but perhaps this letter will help set things right, even if I'm long gone when it's found." The story of Mary Elizabeth Crawford and the dark secrets of Waverly Hills continues to evolve as new evidence comes to light. While the sanatorium no longer treats patients, many believe it still houses restless spirits, particularly that of a dedicated young nurse who gave her life trying to expose the truth. Dr. Emily Ramirez, a paranormal researcher who has studied Waverly Hills extensively, offers perhaps the most fitting epitaph. Some places accumulate history, others accumulate secrets. But at Waverly Hills, the line between history and secrets blurred long ago. In room 502, the past isn't just preserved, it's still trying to speak to us. The Midnight Game of Echo Falls, a fictional tale of darkness and reflection. Echo Falls, Minnesota, population 3,427, lies in the shadow of what locals call the Ghost Range, a series of abandoned iron mines that once brought prosperity to the region. Founded in 1892 by Swedish immigrants, the town might have disappeared like its mining neighbors if not for the strange events that began in the winter of 1987, events that would forever change how the townspeople viewed their own reflections. The town's centerpiece, the Echo Falls Public Library, stood as an architectural anomaly among the modest storefronts and weathered houses. Originally built in 1901 as the mansion of mining baron Augustus Blackwood, the Victorian structure was converted into a library in 1952. Its most striking feature was a series of floor-to-ceiling windows, specially commissioned by Blackwood from a Venetian glassmaker. The windows seemed to capture and hold moonlight like liquid silver, creating what one architectural journal called living mirrors that drink in light and reflect back dreams. Local children had always claimed there was something wrong with those windows. 6-year-old Tommy Hansen swore his reflection winked at him during story time in 1975. In 1983, the entire 4th grade class refused to enter the building for a week after they collectively witnessed their reflections continuing to wave after they had stopped. But these were just preludes to what would happen on Halloween night, 1987. The 5 teenagers who entered the library that night were not troublemakers. Sarah Matthews was the valedictorian-to-be, known for her passion for Latin and archaeology. Michael Chen had already been accepted to MIT, a computer prodigy who built his own programs. Lisa Rodriguez was the editor of the school newspaper and a gifted photographer. James Cooper was the star of the debate team, headed for law school. And Emily Taylor, whose 16th birthday they were celebrating, was a talented artist whose sketches already hung in the town gallery. "They were good kids," said Principal Davidson in his statement to police. "The kind of students who checked out extra books, not the kind who broke into buildings. But break in they did, using a key Sarah had copied during her summer job as a library assistant. Their target was the basement, sealed off in 1962 after a flood damaged part of the foundation. Emily had become obsessed with the space after finding mentions of it in her father's construction company records. There's something down there, she had told her friends. Something the town wants to keep hidden. Security camera footage, preserved in the Echo Falls Police Archives, shows the group entering at 11:43 p.m. They carried flashlights, snacks, and a bottle of sparkling cider for Emily's birthday toast. The cameras caught them picking the basement lock at 11:51 p.m. At 11:52 p.m., all cameras in the building simultaneously malfunctioned. What happened next comes primarily from Sarah Matthews' account, recorded during her stay at the Pine Valley Psychiatric Facility in early 1988. Her story, though initially dismissed as trauma-induced delusion, would gain credibility as more evidence emerged over the years. The basement air was thick with the smell of old books and wet stone. Their flashlight beams revealed shelves of water-damaged volumes and abandoned furniture draped in sheets. But in the furthest corner, partially hidden behind a fallen bookcase, they found something extraordinary, a wooden board game unlike anything they'd ever seen. The game board was carved from a single piece of dark wood that seemed to absorb their flashlight beams. Its surface featured 33 spaces arranged in a spiral pattern, each marked with symbols that appeared to be a mixture of ancient runes and mathematical equations. In the center was an inlaid silver mirror, perfectly preserved despite the basement's dampness. Around its edge was text in Latin, which Sarah translated. Quinque debent ludera, quinque debent menir, donec ultima enigmata evanescent. 5 must play, 5 must stay, until the final riddle fades away. Below this was a longer passage that Sarah later translated as, begin at midnight, end by dawn, or become part of the game. What is reflected may be kept. What is kept shall be played. What is played must be won, or the players shall remain where silence draws long shadows and time holds no meaning. The game had no manufacturer's mark, no copyright, no indication of origin. Later investigation would reveal that the wood was impossibly old. Carbon dating performed on a splinter in 2019 suggested an age of over 1,000 years, though the results were dismissed as contaminated. The teenagers set up the game on a reading table in the library's main room, surrounded by those towering windows that seemed to drink in the moonlight. At exactly midnight, following instructions carved into the board's edge, they each placed a personal item in the center. Sarah's class ring, Michael's calculator watch, Lisa's charm bracelet, James's acceptance letter to Harvard Law, and Emily's sketchbook. The rules seemed simple: roll the dice, move your piece, answer the riddle that appears in the mirror. But as Michael would later tell Sarah, the simplest games often have the highest stakes. The first sign that something was wrong came when Michael rolled the dice. Instead of clattering across the board, they moved in complete silence, as if rolling through deep water. When they stopped, the silver mirror in the center began to ripple like disturbed mercury, and words rose to its surface like bubbles in champagne. I have cities but no houses. I have mountains but no trees. I have water but no fish. I have roads but no cars. What am I? Michael, the scientific mind, began analyzing the riddle methodically. Cities but no houses suggests a representation. Mountains but no trees implies. But the game allowed no time for analysis. As his friends watched in horror, Michael's reflection in the library windows began to fade, becoming increasingly transparent. He started to scream, but the sound seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. Sarah would later describe it as the sound of someone falling into an endless void. Then, in a moment that would haunt the survivors forever, he simply ceased to exist, not with any special effects or dramatic flash, but with the quiet simplicity of a candle being extinguished. His calculator watch clattered to the floor, its display showing impossible symbols. Lisa went next. Her riddle asked, "What force and strength cannot get through? I with a gentle touch can do." And many in the street would stand, were I not his friend at hand. What am I? She was still puzzling over the answer when her reflection began to dissolve. Help, she whispered, reaching toward her friends with increasingly transparent hands. I can see the other side. There are so many faces in the dark. She vanished, leaving only her charm bracelet, the charms now arranged in a pattern that spelled out words in a language no one could read. James faced a riddle about shadows. We follow and lead as the dance proceeds. Yet touch not floor, walls, or rafters. No wings have we, yet swiftly flee. We are the source of all laughter. His attempt to argue with the game's logic proved futile. As he faded, he maintained his debate team composure, calmly describing the sensation. It's like being unmade, one memory at a time. I can feel myself forgetting who I. The acceptance letter remained, the text now backwards and inverted. Emily's riddle seemed cruelly personal. I am not alive, but I grow. I don't have lungs, but I need air. I don't have a mouth, but water kills me. What am I? The artist recognized the answer, fire, but spoke it too late. Her disappearance was the most dramatic, her reflection shattering like glass across every window before vanishing entirely. Her sketchbook remained, but the drawings inside had changed, showing impossible scenes of darkness and scattered reflections. Sarah alone remained, facing the final riddle as dawn approached. What starts but has no end, and ends all that begins? As the sun began to rise, Sarah whispered the answer: death. The mirror in the center of the board shattered, and the game itself crumbled to dust, leaving behind only her friend's transformed belongings. Sarah was found the next morning by the librarian, her dark hair turned completely white, clutching the personal effects of her vanished friends and repeating the same phrase: "The reflections took them, the reflections took them." The official investigation into the disappearances of Michael Chun, Lisa Rodriguez, James Cooper, and Emily Taylor remained open for 3 years before being filed as a cold case. The police report contains interviews with dozens of witnesses who placed all 5 teenagers at various locations earlier that day, security camera footage of them entering the library, and no evidence of them leaving. 4 sets of fingerprints were found on the reading table, but they were oddly distorted, as if pressed into the wood from inside. Sarah spent 6 months in Pine Valley Psychiatric Facility before being released into her parents' care. During her stay, she wrote a detailed account of what happened that night. The manuscript was sealed in the town archives with instructions that it should only be opened if similar disappearances occurred. In 2005, a clerk who violated this order was found in the archives, catatonic, surrounded by mirrors that had been turned to face the walls. The library itself developed a deepening reputation in the years following the incident. Books would relocate themselves overnight, always relating to games, mirrors, or riddles. Visitors reported seeing teenagers in 1980s clothing reflected in the windows, engaged in an endless game that wasn't there when they turned around. The computers would spontaneously display riddles in Latin, and security cameras would fill with static at midnight. The building's windows became a source of particular concern. Cleaning crews refused to work after sunset, claiming they saw faces pressing against the glass from the inside. Children reported their reflections moving independently, mouthing words they couldn't understand. In 1995, a group of teenagers attempting to recreate the game disappeared for exactly 33 minutes before reappearing in the parking lot, with no memory of where they'd been, but their watches showing several days had passed. Local historian Margaret Blackwood, granddaughter of the original mansion's owner, began researching the building's history. Her findings, published in 2010, revealed disturbing patterns. The mansion's original windows had been imported from Venice in 1901, crafted by a glassmaker who disappeared immediately after completing the order. Augustus Blackwood's journals mentioned unusual properties in the glass that made it perfect for bridging the gap between what is and what waits. In 2019, a team of paranormal investigators led by Dr. James Morrison attempted to document the phenomena. They set up state-of-the-art equipment throughout the library and began a live stream at sunset on Halloween night. The footage showed normal activity until midnight, when all their equipment simultaneously malfunctioned. When the cameras came back online at dawn, the investigators were physically present but profoundly changed. "What we witnessed cannot be described in any meaningful way," Dr. Morrison wrote in his final report before retiring from paranormal research. "There are spaces between reflections where something watches and waits. The game is not a game. It's a door, and it's still open." The library was demolished in 2020 to make way for the Echo Falls Shopping Center, but the strange occurrences didn't stop. Construction workers reported finding pieces of an ornate wooden board game in the ruins, only to have them vanish when they looked away. Security guards quit after seeing groups of teenagers playing an invisible game in the reflections of the building's new windows. Sarah Matthews never returned to Echo Falls, but in 2022, she broke her decades-long silence in an email to the town council. "You can't escape it by destroying the building. The game was never in the board or the pieces. It's in the reflections themselves. Every mirror, every window, every still pool of water, they're all waiting for players. And they're patient." Today, the shopping center stands mostly empty, its large glass windows collecting dust and moonlight. Local teenagers dare each other to go there at midnight and roll dice while looking in the reflections. Some claim they've seen the original 5 players, eternally young, eternally trapped in their endless game. Others swear they've heard riddles whispered on the wind, or seen strange symbols appear in the condensation on the windows. The most recent incident occurred just last month, when a group of high school students found what appeared to be an antique board game in a local thrift store. The store owner had no record of where it came from, and the game itself vanished before they could purchase it. But for a moment, they said, they saw their reflections in its silver mirror center, and their reflections were smiling back at them with eyes that glowed like moonlight on glass. Perhaps most disturbing are the reports from Echo Falls Public School, where students sometimes catch glimpses of unfamiliar faces in the classroom windows. The faces are young, wearing clothes from the 1980s, and they appear to be mouthing the same words over and over. Join us. The game is never over. Your turn is coming. The Echo Falls Police Department maintains a dedicated hotline for reports of mysterious board games and unusual reflection activity. Officer Sarah Chun, who manages these reports, notes a strange pattern. Every reported incident involves 5 people. Always 5. And the reports always come in clusters of 33 days. As for the original artifacts from that Halloween night, Michael's watch, Lisa's bracelet, James's letter, and Emily's sketchbook, they remain locked in the Echo Falls Police Evidence Room. But according to the logbook, someone has to reset the combination lock every morning. During the night, the numbers always rearrange themselves into what appears to be a riddle. In darkness we wait, behind silver and glass. Your reflection will join us. When midnight has passed, as we reflect on these 2 urban legends, we begin to realize that fear is a powerful force that shapes our perceptions of reality. It's what drives us to create monsters, ghosts, and supernatural beings, and it's what makes these stories so compelling. But fear can also be a powerful manipulator, shaping our beliefs and perceptions of reality. Both stories share a common thread, the blurring of lines between myth and reality. Are these stories based on fact or fiction? Did they really happen, or are they just a product of our collective imagination? The truth, it seems, is lost forever, leaving behind only the faint whispers of the unknown. However, myth or reality stories has the answer. The first story about Mary Elizabeth Crawford and the Waverly Hills Sanatorium is rooted in historical fact, and is in fact a reality and true. The sanatorium, the death tunnel, room 502, and the high death toll during the tuberculosis epidemic are all documented historical realities. While some elements of Mary's story have been dramatized, the core events and locations are real, and paranormal activities continue to be reported at the site today. The second story about the midnight game of Echo Falls is entirely fictional, a myth made up by us. The town, the library, and all characters were created to craft a modern urban legend that plays on universal fears about cursed objects, missing teenagers, and the mysterious nature of reflections. Every element of this story was invented for entertainment purposes. As we conclude our journey into the world of urban legends, I want to leave you with a question. What's the line between myth and reality? Is it a line that's clearly defined, or is it a blurred boundary that's open to interpretation? The answer, it seems, is up to you. Thanks for joining me on this journey into the world of urban legends. If you have your own urban legends or creepy stories, share them with us in the comments below. And if you're ready for more spine-tingling tales, be sure to check out our next video, where we'll explore more eerie stories that will leave you sleeping with the lights on. Until next time, stay curious, stay creepy, and stay tuned for more urban legends and creepy stories.